Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Service and Sacrifice. This is Justin. I have special guest with me, Rob, today. Rob, do you want to talk a little bit about an intro to yourself and your nonprofit?
Obviously, Rob Heavilin. I go by Heavy if you see me online. I served in the Marine Corps from 2013 to 2018. I was a O231 intelligence specialist. My first unit was 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines. Moved over to 2nd MARDIV Division G2. When I got out, that's where I left from. I went over to Afghanistan in 2019 as a collection manager out of 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐞, which is Resolute Support Headquarters, out of Kabul. Got back, kind of struggled a bit, started a nonprofit called the Heavy Hitters Project, which is all about giving veterans and people really a place where they can feel like a community. I know I isolated when I was going through my depression, anxiety, and all of it. So what better way of doing it than being online, which is where I hid. And I know a lot of people like to hide there. So kind of coming into the front door and being like, hey, we're here. And that's kind of our mission set.
Yeah. So we briefly chatted before recording. So I got out in 2013. That's when you went in. Why did you pick the Marines?
Okay. So that is my dad calls it the family business. My dad, uncles, grandfather, going all the way back to 1776. There's records of my family lineage being in the Marine Corps, all on the men and on the male side. And so I was like, well, yeah, that's what I got to do. Anything else would have just got me made fun of.
Did you go to Parris Island then?
Nope. I was the first Hollywood Marine. I went to San Diego. They all went to the East Coast, which I think is hilarious. Because not only was I the first West Coast Hollywood, but I was also the first Pogue.
Heard of like internal Marine vet beef where they're like, oh, you didn't go to Parris Island? Have you ever like experienced that?
Yeah, it's a common trash talking point on, oh, well, you were on the East Coast, you didn't climb the mountains. And they go, yeah, but you didn't have to deal with sand fleas. It's very common. I just roll with it now. I got my board trunks and my Oakleys when I graduated.
So you signed up for a 5-year enlistment?
Yep, no, 5 years.
And you said you were an intelligence analyst. So besides like the obvious of the name, like what specifically did like your MOS consist of?
Okay, so it involves a 3-month course out in Virginia. You do that, which that course was crazy because
Were you
it's
at Langley?
no, Dam Neck out on Virginia Beach. That course is ridiculous because it's a brief and a test every week. You know, the military standard, 80% or more is passing. Anything less than you're failing. You fail twice, you get re-MOS. So like there's this constant like, I cannot fail. And you have 2 graded things a week. It was a good time, but mainly it depends on which side of the Marine Corps you go on, right? So I went into an infantry battalion. So I was heavily focused on ground intelligence, but you also have air intelligence. So you learn a lot about like weapon systems and all the other stuff that like your typical grunt's gonna need to know, as well as learning like max effective ranges of enemy and friendly pieces of equipment. It's a good time.
Where did you say you were stationed?
Camp Lejeune.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard a lot of things about Lejeune. Aren't they like notorious for having like, is it bad barracks?
Bad barracks, bad water.
The water too. Yeah, dude. I heard like the water, you like can't drink it.
Yeah. So like that's confusing to me because that was like a thing when like my grandfather and my father were over in Camp Lejeune. I don't think it was really a thing after like 2005 or 7, somewhere in there when they swapped to the 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭 aquifer. I don't really understand it. I try not to wrap my mind around government.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But you said you did not deploy while you were active, right?
So I deployed on the Black Sea Rotation Force. I didn't go to Afghanistan or Iraq. I went to Romania and got to work on mill-to-mill engagements with Eastern European countries because that was the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. So right when the Crimea annexation.
Yeah, I remember that. Dude, it seems like we go to multiple branches have like deployment rotations to random Eastern European countries like Romania, Bosnia. Bosnia is huge for like the army. Like special forces just keeps going over and trains their dudes. How was it over there?
It was a party. Especially like on the intel side of things, like what we would just do military to military engagements where 3 of us would go out I went to Lithuania, Romania, Bulgaria, like their militaries and taught intel from and that was just a blast because you would teach them during the day and then at night they would do well, we can outdrink you. And it's like, no, you can't. And then we would just talk. It was a good time.
Awesome. So you got out, you started this nonprofit, and do you want to talk a little bit about like what what your guys' mission is? What do you guys do?
Yeah, I'll kind of go through, I'll start like with the beginning on like why it was founded, because that kind of helps with everything, I guess. I had sent a poem to a guy who he has spoken all over the world on veterans with PTSD. That's his job. And I had sent him a poem, and in that poem I was like, hey, like, you share this with some of your clients. Like, you don't know, they might relate to it. He brought me onto his podcast, and in that I was talking about how I was essayed in the Marine Corps. With that, I was talking about it pretty openly. And a member of the audience had came out and was like, well, that's me too. Like, I had that happen. And as a male, like, that presents its own difficult challenges trying to talk about it, because I didn't the whole time I was in. And afterwards I was like, man, like, I stream, but I just play video games and hang out with my friends and we just talk trash. What if we do this in a way that could potentially help somebody or give them a way to relate? And that's kind of where that started. And our goal is we do weekly mental health live streams where we kind of round table. It's a campfire talk. I'll post questions. I'll talk about like my issues and how that more or less gives people like a relatability, so we can all feel comfortable with one another, or at least not so alone. And we all kind of just talk and round table, which allows us to build that community that we kind of lost when we transition out. And I've talked about this a lot, where I still had friends that were in when I got out, and we would still play video games together. But I always felt after I got out, it was like there was a separation. It was an unseen tension, not really a tension, but like, well, you're not involved in this anymore, so you don't really need to know all these things. And it's not as connected as it was beforehand. And so it's kind of rebuilding that, where we work on helpful ways. We network with other organizations that are doing really great things to help out veterans who are struggling, like American Warrior Outdoors. We did a fundraiser for them. They take vets on hunting, fishing, and camping trips. We develop a network of resources, so when people are like, hey, I'm struggling with this thing, I go, okay, I know a person who can help you. Let's get you contacted. It's more or less the community for us to facilitate, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah, definitely. I went to last week's mental health chat just to like see what it was about.
Mhm.
And it was really good. It was it's like no pressure. It was chill. It didn't have that like weird stigma of like therapy and like, you know how people like don't like to do that. The guys who worked at your company were proposing questions and people were answering, and it was just a very comfortable environment, which was nice, because veterans especially, I feel like, just don't want to talk about stuff, even though for the most part, like, we've all been through similar things and we all understand each other's issues, but we just don't want to like say them out loud.
And especially in like a professional environment. And that's one of my biggest things, is like, I never wanted to get to where we are feeling like group therapy. I refuse to, because that's not what we are. And it's also legally not allowed, right? Like, let's keep it to what it is, on like guys and gals with similar experiences, or maybe differing, but who can relate in some way, just talking, finding that commonality. You never know. Like, you could talk about something that you're like, nobody else is going to relate to this. And I've had that happen. I've been like, nobody knows my struggle. And I say something about it and they're like, nah, see, I get that because of XYZ. And it's like, oh my God, finally somebody gets it. Here I've been feeling alone on this issue for years.
Yeah. So you mentioned in the beginning, you started to pick up traction on Twitch with some of the games that you were playing. What do you currently play?
So now it kind of depends on the day. We will do community events, and those we will do like larger games. We've done Lockdown Protocol, which is like a person is an imposter trying to kill everybody without getting caught. A lot of times we'll do like Arma Reforger has been a recent one, because you can have like 17 people in a squad, and that's just like a mil sim, and that keeps everybody talking and engaged. There's a lot of walking in that. It's just patrol simulator. So you're like walking around trying to find bad guys, but at the same time, you're just shooting the shit. It gets really entertaining. We were sitting in the back of the 5-ton once, and all the typical field questions started getting asked. And I was like, oh my God, like, I feel like I'm back in again. Because it was the typical silly shit that you would hear.
Yeah, that's awesome. I need to probably get a better gaming computer than what I currently have. I just play like old school strategy games. Like,
Yep.
have you heard of Age of Empires?
Yep.
Yeah, I play two. So it's like from 1997. I like COD and all that stuff, but I don't think my laptop could handle COD right now. Like, it gets so hot that like you can't touch it. It's got to be like it's got to be melting internally. One day it's just going to blow up. But I like what you said about when you got out, there was like that that separation that you couldn't explain, and like this is bringing people back together, because I think we all deal with that. But like I felt the same way when I got out in 2013. Like I kind of stayed in touch with people, like every now and then we reached out, but it was like, it's so weird to go from one day that's all you see for like 10 plus hours is these people, and then the next day you like don't have that much in common anymore. And at least for me, it took me a long time, and this is going to sound negative, but it's not meant to sound negative. It took me a long time to realize that like most of those people I had nothing in common with, except for the fact that we were like forced to socialize together. And that's not meaning like they weren't good people or anything, but like for me, if we met in the civilian world, I'd probably be like
Yeah.
maybe we'll hang out. But dude, also when I came back, and I talk about this on my channel and in my writing because I have a newsletter, is it took me like 3 to 5 years where I did not want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to acknowledge everything that happened. I didn't want to hear. I talk about when I went to my community college and there was like a vet lounge room, and I was really hesitant to go because, dude, the second I walked in, they couldn't stop talking about it. And it took me a long time to realize that like they were really excited about their accomplishments that they went through. And I just didn't want to hear the stories. I didn't want to hear about Iraq. I didn't want to hear the IED stories. But now it's like, great, dude. Like if they want to talk about that, I'm happy for them. Like some people can't let go of experiences, but for a long time, I was just like, I just want to be a normal person who didn't do these things.
No, I actually totally get that. Like that was, and I think that's part of the normal process, right? Is especially, I call it, I see it in a cycle. Your first 6 months when you got out of the Army, tell me you weren't ecstatic that you were out.
Dude, I remember just like sitting on the couch and I was just like, I can do whatever I want.
Yep. Tell me that following 6 months after, you weren't like, I want to go back. I miss it. I miss my guys. I miss the camaraderie. And what I've noticed is like it comes in waves where you're like, oh man, I'm so glad I'm not there anymore. Oh, I want to go back. And then I feel like as you hit, I'm going on what, 6 years since I got out of like the contracting aspect. So 7 years since I was in the Marine Corps. Hit this point where it's like I can recognize, hey, there were some good things here. There were some bad things, and I'm more neutral to it. But I understand it's no longer like a love-hate, tug and pull relationship anymore. Where it's more neutral now.
Yeah, definitely. I think every veteran goes through those like very brief thoughts where they're like, man, I kind of miss like having a purpose instead of just like clocking in, clocking out. But then I also try to tell myself like there were also equally a lot of pretty not good experiences. I would say for me, it switched between I got out. I didn't even want to acknowledge that I didn't go to college like a normal kid. And I was like, I just want to like go out on happy hour and like experience like the bars on Saturday night. And then there was this period where like that faded away. And I was kind of like, normal civilian life is pretty boring. There's no real like highs and lows. Like you work, you get a better job, you get a promotion, maybe you go back to school, you get a degree, but that's it, right?
Yeah.
You get a house, you get a dog. There's no crazy like shooting rockets, shooting a 50 cal out of an Apache. Like there's nothing crazy. And then in like the past like 3 years, something clicked, and I just started noticing all these veterans who were like really struggling with a ton of different things, like financially, mental health, benefits, working crappy jobs. And they were like, I don't know how to get a better job. And so I was kind of like, well, I know how to do those things because I did them for myself. So like maybe I can help them. Some of them obviously will not, take advice or still struggle to use it, which is equally frustrating because you can throw someone a rope, right, when they're in a hole, but like they gotta like want to climb out of it. And I feel like a lot of everybody, but specifically I notice vets like just almost like suffering through things, and they're like, I got to do it on my own and don't want help.
I think it comes from that the embrace the suck mindset, right? Where you're like, I've got to be this way. Like I'm used to being on my own or trying to figure this out on my own to an extent, and it just became habit. And then that's just kind of where you get stuck. You can give them the map to the maze, but they're not going to follow it. They're going to run into all the dead ends and walk their way back out. Some will, but I would say the mass majority like love bouncing their head off the wall in front of them.
Yeah, and it still blows my mind, man. Like I can't figure it out. I mean, obviously everyone has different situations. Like some people have like 3 kids or they got laid off. Like it happens. But I feel like at minimum, all veterans should be using as much of their benefits as possible. Like, use your GI Bill, even if you hate school, even if you're bad at school, you can get like straight C's and still collect 2,000 plus tax-free dollars per month. Like, just take, dude, there were times where I'm not proud of this, but I failed most of my classes for 2 semesters back to back because I was going through a tough time. And I was like, I got to keep doing it because I need the money. And so like, it sucks. I lost a year of my GI Bill. I made up for it eventually. But like, when people say they're not using their benefits, I'm like, dude, what was the point of all of the sucky shit you did that you now can't move on from if you're not even still going to use your benefits?
Right. And I also feel like the part of that problem is our culture as a whole, on how like we will make people feel, I want to say gatekeeped, right? Where it's like, well, you weren't a combat veteran, so you don't deserve this. You didn't deploy to where I deployed. You didn't go through the stuff that I went to. And it's like, nah, man, like you rate. And I promise you rate. And it's just, it's wild to me that we would do that to our own. And so I 100% agree with you. There's resources out there. And that's one of our things is like we find these resources and then it's like, all right, let's help you use them. Let's help you go through a disability claim. Let's help you get these things. I'll sit there with you. I've done it. Let's do it. To make it so that way they understand that, no, you do rate this. You deserve to have these things. Ain't nobody here going to judge you. And if so, like if people start judging, it's like, get out of here. Like you don't fit. That's toxic. Fix yourself, then come back.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned like veterans like kind of eating their own. I started my TikTok like 5 weeks ago and my algorithm is like completely military stuff. Dude, vets are so hateful towards each other. Like, I do not understand. Like, first off, there's like branch beef.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's different generational gaps of people. Like, the 60-year-old vets are telling the 40-year-old vets, like, your service was super easy. And then they're looking down on like 30-year-old vets who are like, you don't know how hard it was. We had to shine our boots every day. Like, I hate the shine your boots thing. Like, I'm just like, dude, I do not care about the shining of the boots. And then within that, dude, you mentioned there are so many micro issues. Like, unless you're like Dakota Meyer or the Navy SEAL who shot bin Laden, dude, every single vet is like, oh, you didn't go on a combat deployment? And then if you're like, oh, I did go on a combat deployment, well, you didn't get like caught in that one crazy battle of Fallujah for that 2-day period. Like your service wasn't as good as, but like they do that all the way down to your length of, oh, you only did 3 years. Like, oh, you were at this base. It was much easier. And it's like, guys, we all like, why can't we all just get along? Like, who cares?
One of my first interactions with one of my community members, and I'm not going to give names or none of that, but he came to me. He's like, I had heard about you from one of our guys. He's like, I've been struggling. I've been trying to, he was in a vet friendly server before. And he's like, I kept trying to talk about what I went through. And they're like, well, it happened stateside, so it doesn't count. His best friend was shot in front of him. He was an MP. How does that not count? Like, he went through something traumatic. And like, he's being told by fellow veterans that, well, it didn't happen in Iraq or Afghanistan where we're at war. So it doesn't matter. Which, now let's think about the big scope of that. You're telling him then that his friend's life didn't matter, that what he witnessed and the issues that has come from that doesn't matter. Like, how do you think that's going to like impact him in the long run? Dude was, I would say, days away from not wanting to be and not being here. And it's like, that's wild that we would do that to our own. And like, we all like, oh, we got your back. Yeah, you're a liar if that's how you're treating your own.
Yeah. And I see it today still with like, I don't know how much you scroll on social media, but like I scroll on Instagram and TikTok and I'm seeing it a lot because in 2013, when I got out, and I've mentioned this before, that's when they like passed the law that like women can be in combat MOSs. Because literally as I was ETSing, my friends were like, oh, there's females in our AIT course for our MOS. And I was like, what are you talking? Like, I must have missed this huge news. But dude, I see it every day, multiple comments. Female will post a video and someone to the just like anything from a super PG comment, like, oh, a female in the military, like, you know, the standards are so much lower. Or someone will get hurt and then get like med board out at like a year and a half. And they're like, oh, of course, saw that coming. And it's like, guys, I know so many males who, like, I tell this story all the time, but this dude got out of AIT, who was in my unit, went on his first ruck, and he, like, stepped in, like, a divot, snapped his ankle completely in half. I don't even know how he did it. It's, like, impressive how bad it was. And, dude, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
He did 10 weeks worth of stuff in training, snapped his ankle, and was on, like, a cane and crutches for the entire 3 years of his contract. It's like, dude, freak accidents happen all the time. And like vets just keep hating on each other.
It makes no sense, and it's wild because then these same ones that are hating on each other are the ones that are like, why do we have the epidemic of the 22 a day that we do? And it's like, do you not see how you're feeding it? You are feeding the beast that's causing this, and you're going to stand back and be like, well, I'm surprised.
Yeah, and on a bigger scale, because I've thought about this to no end, like vets are mostly upset with other vets because they feel like their rating was like unjustly low, right? Like I'll see a vet who's like, my buddy went to Iraq 2 times, got shot and had like a leg surgery and he's only at 70%. And then this dude who never deployed's at like 90. And it's like, dude, there are a dozen factors to why that happened. Maybe the guy who deployed was too proud to mention that he's in still a ton of pain, because I know a lot of my buddies who were like, no, I didn't file that. And I'm like, well, that's dumb, because over the course of your life, that's like $200,000 tax free that you're missing out on. And then it also depends on the doctor you have who's looking at you when you file the claim. It depends on the person processing your claim, and then the CMP examiner. And so like that's a whole problem within the VA and how they do it. Because yes, if you got hurt overseas and you got shot and all this crazy stuff, you definitely should be high up there on the percentage. And like, yes, there are people who have 100% who still have both their legs, and people are like, that's crazy. And it's like, dude, it's like, it's not, it's
Yeah.
not crazy.
It just so much depends on like how much was put into that claim. Like, did you show up with all the medical records? And did you, like, for me, like I went out and I saw another doctor as soon as I got out, a civilian doctor, and was like, hey, like, these are my issues. I just want to start feeling like better. I didn't want to be in pain every day. It was a wild concept. And then I turned all that paperwork into the VA and was like, here, like, these are the MRIs, these are the orthograms, these are everything. Like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I just want to feel like a person again here, and let them deal with it. Like, how many times does that happen? Probably not that many, because that's a lot of it's a lot of effort just to be like frustrated with the system anyway.
Yeah, it just blows my mind, because imagine if all generations of veterans and active duty just worked together so that our benefits would increase. Then the next generation 10 years from now, and then those people 10 years from now, like they could get out and their benefits can be great. And like I know a lot of veterans who have had awful experiences with almost every benefit. Dudes will say, oh, the VA loan's fantastic. It's one of the best benefits, right? Like it's so much cheaper. But then you'll hear veterans be like, I can't get a house because the seller's company doesn't want to work with the VA loan because there's so many issues and they move slowly. And for example, my house, the seller had to pay to get a railing installed, because I think for the VA policy, if you have more than 3 steps, you need a railing. And in this market, the seller can just be like, no, I'm going to go with a company that doesn't do that. All the veterans that are struggling out there using their benefits, those outcries for help are getting pushed down and not heard, because there's a few veterans here and there that are like, my VA experience is fantastic. I get taken care of all the time. But then I see dudes who are like, I spent 6 hours on the phone with the VA and then my call was dropped, and his complaint gets pushed away because someone was like, I've been using the VA 20 years, never had a problem.
It's wild to me that we don't, and as a community, we don't take the big picture approach, and we are so focused on like isolated incidents, when it's like, nope, like, what is the probability that these things are going to go wrong? Less than 0? Okay, so it's probably happened. And let's understand that. Let's not fight on it, but how do we make the system better? And why do we have to be stuck in the thought process of, well, it was bad for me, so it's got to be bad for you? We all hated that while we were in. I know for a fact everybody complained about, well, he's just mad because he had it worse, and so he's making our lives harder for that. So why do we perpetuate that? Can't come up with an answer.
Yeah, I don't know why vets are like, I'm upset that it was tough for me, so I want it to be tough for you. Like, how about we just make things easy for each other? When I scroll on social media and I see brand new recruits who are like just finished MEPS or like studying for my ASVAB, which good for you, because I didn't study for my
Same.
when I see those people, or like when they post videos of them getting, I forgot what it's called, like tapped out, or when your family like hits your rank on basic training day, whatever it's called. I want those guys to get out in 3 or 5 or 10 years, and I want their benefits to be a smooth process. I don't want them to get injured and then the military's like, hey, well, now you qualify for voc rehab. You get a whole nother year free. They give you a free cool laptop. And then it doesn't actually work. I don't know if you're familiar with VR&E. It is a nightmare of a process. I've heard of like, I can probably count on one hand how many people were like, no, it was smooth for me. I called, I got, my counselor was super great. There's one office in the state here. It's in Hartford. And I think there's like 3 employees. It is closed like every day. I called to try to use it for my master's. I probably tried for like 8+ months, called. And then people were like, oh no, you can't call, you got to email. So then I emailed. I submitted requests on the website. They never got back to you. I called the VA regional number complaining. I was like, what do I do? And they were like, oh, you got to call the place. And I tried to do like some reverse psychology. I was like, great. What do I do if they don't pick up? And it's like, dude, you could tell like smoke was coming out. They were like, what do you mean the benefits aren't that good? Long story short, after like a year, someone finally contacted me and the process was still just terrible. No communication. He was like, yeah, we can reimburse you if you send us all the receipts from like all the classes and all the books. And I'm just like, dude, how am I supposed to obtain that information? Am I supposed to call all 2 colleges that I went to, call the billing department? I'm like, hey, I was there 4 years ago. Can you just send me an invoice for everything? They're going to be like, no, we're not going to assist you at all.
It's wild. I really don't get it. And we do. We have the capability to make it different and better. And it's funny to me because it's the people who are complaining that, oh, it's better now, or like, how dare you have it easier, are the same ones that aren't willing to be like, that are also like, well, this sucks. Not teaching people how to do it right is one thing I've noticed. They're not out there trying to make it better or try to help anybody. They just want to live in their own little sorrow and be like, well, you should have it hard too. And it's like, okay, man, like, cool. Just step to the side, please. Like, just go over there. Let us continue to help people. Let's make this process better. I'm tired of losing friends, and that's like the big thing. So like, let's do something about that.
Yeah, I did a pretty extensive report on depression and PTSD and suicide in the military. And like, I'm sure you've seen the numbers, but like some reports say it's like 17, some say it's an average of 22. I've seen that it goes up as high as 25 because a lot of them are unreported to the VA. Like if somebody does that and the family does not contact the VA that they were, or have like a military funeral, they won't get added into the statistics. And it still blows my mind because I remember the first time I got signed up with the VA, which was completely accidental. I used private insurance for like 8 years because my thought process was healthcare in the military sucked. VA is probably going to suck. And like, I wasn't that wrong. And I called the VA for something. I think I was trying to get my veterans card so I can get like discounts on stuff. And they were like, you should sign up for free healthcare. And I was like, sure, whatever. I was like, you know what? I want to go see a therapist just like because, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I followed the proper steps. I called the mental health line or whatever. And dude, they told me flat out, they were like, cause there's only like 3 people in this side of the state who are therapists for the VA. And they were like, there's an indefinite waiting list. And I was like, can I go on it? And they were like, yeah, but we don't have like an estimated time of like when we can call you, weeks, months. And at the time, like, I feel like they're informed not to tell you about community care. And I tell every veteran I meet, I'm like, dude, don't even waste your time with the hospital. Community care every single time. For those of you listening who don't know, per the Mission Act, if the VA wait times are too long, or you're like unhappy with their service, or if your VA is too far away, you can use the community care, which is like a local doctor that's also part of the VA's network. But yeah, they were just like, no, we can't help you. And I remember I asked to speak to the director of the mental health department because I was pissed. And I was like, I'm not upset for me because I'm okay. I just wanted to chat with somebody and like, work on normal things like anxiety, and I'm pissed and road rage or something. But I was like, what would have happened if I was a veteran who called, who like really went through something bad and was like, I got to talk to somebody. And you guys were like, sorry, like that's not acceptable.
Yep. My first experience with this regional, not regional, but my local, I go in, I talk to the psychologist, and at this point, I'm open about my story. She's like, okay, well, lay it out for me. I lay it all out 35 minutes before. She's like, I can't help you. And I went, well, what does that mean? She's like, I'm not qualified to deal with that. Like, I can't help. I can't handle that. And I was like, I can't handle that, then like you're trained in this, I can't handle it. And so they referred me out in town. Like that is one thing I love about living in Montana. My like VA hospital is an hour and 45 minutes away. So like most things that I need just go immediately into care in the community. And it's like, do you want to drive or do you not? And it's like, no, like I'm not driving.
Yeah, anything that has like more than a 2 to 3 month wait, I'm just like, nope, I want to see a doctor close to my house. And if they're ever like, oh, well, we encourage, I'm like, do I have to call patient advocacy? Because like, if I have to drive down there and be an ass, like I'll do it. But yeah, like one time I called, I wanted to have, I wanted to go to an ENT, which of course was on the other side of the state. And they were like, oh, it's a 9 month wait time. And I was like, no. It's not. That's absurd. But yeah, speaking of like unqualified, I tried back like a year later and I was just like, I just want to see if anything has changed. And they got me in, to my surprise. I don't know if you've dealt with this, but you only get 4 sessions is what they told me. Everybody gets 4 sessions individually, and then you can go to group, which I couldn't do because group was in person on like a Friday. And I was like, I have a job. I can't do that. And it was a girl who was in college graduating. So she was like interning with the VA. And I was like, look, I'm not going to hold that against her, that she's like 22 and has like absolutely probably no experience dealing with veterans other than her program. But the structure of the sessions were so clearly like a printed template that was like, use this for everyone, no matter how bad it is. And it was like, if you're upset, count back from 10, or like squeeze your fists, like Google type shit. And again, dude, like I spoke to the same director and I was like, my guy, like you cannot use the same strategies for a veteran who's just stressed about normal things, my job, relation, to someone who has like killed people, an IED blew his buddy up next to him. Like you have to use different methodologies.
Yep. So like that's wild to me. So like because I've heard of things like this, and I actually have a therapist now with the VA, and me and him actually developed more or less a friendship outside of that. And I was like, because I was curious, because I've heard like you only get X amount of sessions before you have to be kicked out. And he's like, no, that is not the VA's rules. He's like, that might be like that regional's like policy doing things the wrong way. He's like, but per the VA, you can have as many sessions as you need and want. And it's like, why? Like, why are these other districts and regionals making their own rules up when the policy is, hey, take care of our people? He's like, that's what the VA says, is like, just take care of them. If they need more than 30 sessions of therapy, they get more than 30 sessions of therapy. Like, you just make sure that they make it to the next day or to the next appointment. And I'm like, that's wild. Because like I've heard it. I've had guys and that are like really reliable to me that are like, I know you're not lying. I know you're not. I'm being told this thing. Well, that means realistically what's going on is that regional, that district is saying something that is against or not within policy, but they're taking the whole commander's intent a little too, it drives me nuts. Because it does, it ruins the experience for people.
Yeah. Yeah, I complained endlessly because how annoyed I was, but they were very firm, like 4 sessions, and they tried to do this. Like I appreciated the intent of what they were trying to do because the goal was that they teach you the tools so that I felt like they were reading off a script. They're like, we're teaching you the tools so that you don't need us. You can do it on your own. And I'm like, dude, if I get like 35-minute sessions or 4 45-minute sessions is not going to make it so that I can go out in public and just be like 10, 9, 8. Like, it's not, it's not what I want to do. I specifically told them, I was like, no, I want to meet with someone bi-weekly, like forever, just like ongoing. And I don't blame them because I know they're short-staffed. Like I went down to the physical office and there were 3 doctors for this half of the state. And I Googled some rough numbers, but dude, there's hundreds of thousands of veterans on this half of the state alone. And then I did some math and I was like, let's say 50% of those vets go to the VA for help. That's 3 therapists for 150,000 potential patients. So once again, the VA is letting people down. The government's letting the VA down. And they have to probably push for group sessions because one person can see 15 or 20 opposed to one. But I'm like, dude, not everybody feels comfortable in group sessions. me personally, like, not that I don't feel bad about other people's scenarios. Like, I don't want to hear sad things, right? Like, and that's nothing to those people. Some people like find encouragement from hearing how other people struggled and got out of it. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and it's all, and that's the thing, is it's all based on the individual person. And like I feel like as we've made progress with mental health, we are still looking for the one size fits all answer. And it's like, when are we going to learn that the brain is not a knee, it's not a leg, it's not an arm. There is no, well, this thing happened, this is how you fix it response. Some people are going to respond better with the group. They're going to respond better with individuals. Some people don't need it. They may do service animal, any other resource that may come along. They may do good with that, and all the other ones may be trash. And we got to stop like being like, oh, no, there's your one size fits all. You got it. We got you.
Absolutely. I love the idea of service dogs. Like my dogs, they're not service dogs, but like just normal pets, because I'm a huge animal guy, like help me relax. I love watching a Netflix movie and just chilling with my dog. Like, love it, dude. And I hear stories, I'm sure you have too, of like veterans struggling to get their service animal or like paperwork. I don't really know how it works. That, and then I'm sure you've seen like, like videos online of like American Airlines has, told veterans to remove their service dog. And that shit, I'm like, what is going on? But like people can bring their like yappy chihuahuas on a plane. What is in the works for your nonprofit? Are there future goals? Are you trying to do more like collaboration?
Yeah. So the goal is to continue to build that resource, that network pool. So we have more things to offer to the community of guys and gals that are struggling. One of the things that we started about a month ago, that's called the 𝐬𝐻𝐾 Fund. It's a financial assistance fund named after one of our members. His dog was recently diagnosed with heart cancer. The community rallied together and raised money to cover the vet bill to help take care of his dog. And so we named it after the dog because like it's his service animal. He's been helping a veteran. He can continue to help veterans. That was my thought process on that. And so raising money for that, to be like, okay, like veteran has come into this financial hardship. These are the things that I need. I need proof of that you're a veteran, proof of the hardship. Now let's help you. That's huge for me because my biggest thing is like, I want to take care of people. And if that means that everything goes into helping people, that's cool. I'm good with that. Like that's the end goal. But continuing that, eventually we'll end up doing like workshops on emotional intelligence as part of the goal, more community engagement, and then trying to get it to where right now everything's online. I want to start getting it localized into like where members are, where they can go, okay, we're going to do this thing for this project and get the community involved in a physical sense. Like, we're going to go do this. We're going to go partake in this ceremony or whatever. Continue that community and giving people that place where they can be like, I'm comfortable here, and they get it. So we stop feeling alone all the time.
Yeah. So that individual, his service dog had heart issues. And like, maybe this was naive for me of thinking the government doesn't like help pay for that if it's like a government issued service dog.
So it's not a government issued service dog. He had paid for it all out of pocket. But no.
Really?
Yep.
You always have to pay for your
No,
service animal?
there's programs, there's resources out there that utilize that, like they'll pay for everything. It does get some of the programs right, like they maintain possession of the dog if they're paying for the vet and everything because they want to make sure it's being taken care of. And so like that can cause like hesitation, right? Because I'm going to get attached to this dog that is my service animal. But if something happens, I could lose my dog like that. I could see where that can cause like hesitation in people. And so like a lot of times, yeah, you can do it yourself.
Yeah, I've seen, I don't know how much it is for veterans, but I've seen like fully trained dogs that like are able to they sense like anxiety or like panic attack or like raises in your heartbeat. I mean, they're pretty expensive, upwards of 10,000, right?
Yeah. Including all the training time and everything else. Cause like in that, you have the basic obedience and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So like those programs are awesome. But yeah, just to try to help him out, it was something that like the community was like, let's help. And it's like,
Yeah.
cool, guys, like if you want to help, let's make it happen.
That's awesome. So it's called the 𝐻𝐾 Fund.
Yep.
So is this only for animals moving forward or like anyone with financial
Any
need?
veteran. And that's my requirement is you be veteran. are active duty, right?
What are some ways that you raised funds? Like donations? Did you also like do Twitch?
Yeah, we do Twitch streams. That's where I started at. That's where I feel comfortable at. The bald head, I lost my eyebrows, my beard, all of that for some of these charity events because it's like, well, fine, you donate X, I'll cut my hair, I'll look like an idiot. I'm good with it. My fiance thinks it's funny. I'm glad my eyebrows grew back before the wedding.
So how exactly do you make money streaming? Do people just support your cause and donate it that way?
So there in Twitch, there you have like as a nonprofit. So when we do our events for other nonprofits, a lot of them use PayPal. Well, when you register a nonprofit with PayPal, you become part of the PayPal giving fund, which Twitch works with. So basically there will be you like as a streamer, you push like charity and then they get whatever's donated in. The other thing that we do is like we'll raise money on our end and then be like, all right, 100% of this is going to this. That's what we did with the Hachi Fund. It's like, nope, every donation that comes in during this time frame, all of that money is going into this fund to go help with this cause.
Awesome. How often do you guys do like streaming to raise funds?
So for other organizations, I do those monthly. I pick a different organization. I see that as like a double-edged thing, right? Like I am supporting a boots on the ground operation that is doing something that matters and that is important. At the same time, my community may not have ever have heard of this resource, and I am presenting it in front of them, and they get to learn about something. And it's like that works out great because we're supporting the people and supporting the people who need it. And it's so we do those monthly. And for me, it also like this isn't about me. This isn't about anything more than trying to help people. And it's like, no, see, like here you go. Like this is the proof of I'm here to help. I'm not asking for anything in return from anybody. I'm just asking for you to let me help you, which has been a wild conversation for some people, apparently.
It's tough. I know we chatted a bit before recording about it, but you can offer, because I've been in situations where like I have presented everything this veteran would need to be successful with their issue, because a lot of these issues are very common, right? Like it could be anything from something simple like my resume is just bad.
Mhm.
It's just not good, to I can't interview, to I don't know how to use my benefits, to something simple like I mentioned the Mission Act, where I can't get a hold of my doctor. What do I do? Well, the first step is you can call patient advocacy. The second is you can call the national regional number. And then the last step is they have this like White House complaint number where you like file official paperwork. But a lot of people just don't know that and they give up with like, I'll just keep calling endlessly. I feel like in my experience, I've dealt 50-50 with people. They say they want help, but then when you offer it, I don't know if subconsciously they're like, no, I don't want things to really get better. Or I can't imagine how this scenario would be if it were better. And the other half, like, just don't have the drive to want to be. And like, it's tough to deal with because you don't want to see other veterans who, have gone through the same struggle, both active and when they got out, and just like not being okay,
100%. And like it comes into a balancing act because like the problem is like there will be times, right, where you're dealing with people who don't really want to get better. And it's like, but you've got people that do want to get better. And it's like, well, I gotta shift my focus here. It really sucks for these people that don't want to get better and they're going through it. But I've got to be able to help those that want to and learning how to be like, okay, like let's step back for a second, let's get these guys taken care of, and then we can re-engage and run like a guided mentorship. I'm like, okay, like, well, fine. Well, why are you stuck here? Like, let's start addressing that.
Yeah, one of my close friends who runs a pretty big Facebook military group, literally, like you guys said the exact same thing verbatim. Because I remember I was venting to her where I was like, it's so stressful to spend hours upon hours trying to help someone, and then they make like 0% effort on their part. They want you. It's like they want you to like do the interview for them and like put money in their bank account, and you can't do that. And my philosophy has been, I will put equal effort into anybody, like no matter, I will give you the effort. But if I don't see you like any sort of progression, even if it's baby steps, then like I'm going to the next person. If you need me, I'll still help you, but like I gotta devote the energy to the people that I know are at least attempting. And that's tough to deal with.
Yeah, because it leaves you feeling as some sort of guilty in a way. At least in my experience, has been like, well, man, like I wish I feel bad. Like, what am I not doing right by them? And it's like, once you get to step back from it and look objectively, it's like, no, like, this isn't, I've done everything I can. That's not on me. It's on the person. I gave them the tools. They just couldn't take that one step forward that they needed to. That's not on me.
Yeah, and a lot of it is timing. Like timing in people's lives, timing in like how much they've dealt or how new they are to the problem they're dealing with, right? Because like there was a time in my life where like if someone reached out to me and they were
Mhm.
like, "Hey man, I'll help you practice interviews and I'll get your LinkedIn good," and like I would have been like, "Nah, like I'm okay, like whatever." But then I had to like get over that like feeling sorry for yourself hump to where I'm like, wow, these tools are actually like, you need these tools in the civilian world because you can have a great resume, which most vets that I've seen they don't have a
Mhm.
good resume. You could have a great resume. Your LinkedIn could be good. You could be super qualified, but you get on the interview and you're like awkward and twitchy and you're like looking around. You want like a full portfolio of tools so that you can get that job and get that income so you can pay for your rent and stuff. But yeah, man, it's tough. Some people cannot get out of that like boo hoo, so hard for me stage of their life.
And like that's where like I get to feel, or where we kind of do it where it's like, all right, like I see you and I get it and you're struggling right now and I acknowledge you're struggling. I'm going to help these people real quick and make sure they're taken care of, and then we'll come back and be like, all right, like, well, have we tried this yet? Like, and you get to kind of continue that, right? Because luckily it being online is like, it's a message line here and there being like, hey, like, have you thought about these things yet? No? Okay. Like, that's okay. Like, you'll get there eventually, I promise. It's kind of interesting, I guess, in this really weird way.
Yeah, definitely. So before I ask you the last question here, do you want to mention, and I'll put it all in the description below, where people can find your website, the Discord, the Twitch, when you do these mental health chats?
Yeah. Okay. So the website is heaviesproject.com. Um, that's obviously online. Twitch, right now it's all being done through heavy_actual on twitch.com. The Discord link is actually on our webpage. It's on the Twitch account as well. I think I covered where you can find us for the most part. TikTok, Heavy Hitters Project.
Okay, awesome. So last question for you.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for active duty members who are transitioning out and veterans who just like don't know what to do next? They're struggling. They don't know what resources to use. What's a good first step?
I would say you're, and especially for the active duty guys, like if you're still in, make sure you get your stuff documented. Go to medical. Don't tough it out. It doesn't do you any good when you get out. Being the tough guy never got you anywhere. Like, it doesn't help you in the long run. Be okay with that. The other thing is, don't be afraid to reach out and say you need help. Like, don't let your pride and ego stop you from being like, well, I can take care of this on my own. I'm comfortable suffering in silence. Like, it doesn't work. You won't get there unless you start taking the steps to get the resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't put up with all the stress and life hardship that the military put on you and not take advantage of the benefits that they are also giving you. Like you dealt with the bad part, also use the good part. But thank you for coming. Looking forward to the
Definitely.
next mental health chat.
Yeah, that will be next Wednesday. Sorry, that was the thing I was missing. I knew I was missing one of them. That's going to be next Wednesday, 5:30 Mountain Time, 7:30 Eastern.
7:30 Eastern next Wednesday. Awesome.
Thanks for having me.